Hey everyone, this is Chris here with Daily Motor, and today we've got the infotainment tour and demo of the Live Cockpit Plus with iDrive 8 on this BMW i4. Before we get started with all of that, with all of the technology, let's hop out, take a walk around this car so you can see what we're working with. BMW's first mass-produced electric sedan is here, and it does have a little bit of a silly face, but otherwise I think it's actually quite a attractive vehicle, and I really enjoyed driving it around the past few days. The only thing that's been a little bit iffy for me is the iDrive 8, and we are going to get into that, and we'll give you guys a tour of that today. But if you want to learn more about this BMW i4 eDrive 40, we will have links in the description to a range test and a full review, and I believe also a sound system test of this Harman Kardon speaker system. But the purpose of today's video is to dive into this big sloping curved screen right there in front of the steering wheel and see how it works. And of course, I'll give you my thoughts at the end for how I actually like operating this system. Now, being that this is a BMW i car, it shuts off by itself when you get out. So we'll fire it back up, or I don't know if you'd really say fire it up because it's an electric car. So we have a 12.3-inch cluster here. If you can see that through the steering wheel. Move this up a little bit so you guys can see it better. And then we have a 14.9-inch infotainment display. This is all one unit. It curves, follows the contour of the dash. And just from an appearance standpoint, I actually quite like it, and I think that it kind of just complements this whole EV simplicity vibe that BMW is going for. Would I like to have a physical climate control unit? Yes, I would, and we'll get into that a little bit more later. But I want to start with this 12.3-inch cluster here, and it's actually quite simple. There aren't too many things you can do on here, and we'll start over here on the left. BC, that's something that if you're familiar with BMWs, you'll know that that just cycles you through different menus here on your cluster. If you hit it, all this BC button does is take you through different values. So you have your kilowatt hour, or your efficiency there for the charge since the car has been produced, and then for your individual time if you want to set that to whatever time you want to reset it. You can also control it over here with this button on the right, this little button with 3 dots and 3 bars. That'll take you through what sort of content you want to have here. You can either have nothing, you can have your kilowatt hour values, you can have road signs, you can have your navigation, or you can have what song is playing. Use these arrows here. You can change the layout of your cluster for how you want it to look here. So a few different designs there. It's kind of nice that they do that. I'm going to put this back here to the calm screen. And you can also control your heads-up display here, decide how you want that to look. I don't know if you guys can see that on camera, but there are 3 choices there for the heads-up display. I like to leave everything here in its standard format. I think that just the basic design that they give is actually quite attractive. And then you go ahead and click that button, and it just takes you right back to how you had this looking before. So that's pretty much it when it comes to the cluster. So let's move on to what you guys came here for, the 14.9-inch infotainment display with iDrive 8. If you want to check out a video on iDrive 7, I just did one on the outgoing BMW 3 Series. Quite a bit less complicated here than iDrive 8. I've always been scared of iDrive 8 because there are just so many options in this infotainment display. As you can see, you scroll and it just keeps going. There are so many widgets here, and I don't want to go super in depth and have this be a 40-minute long video, but we'll take a quick look through all of these. We'll show you Apple CarPlay, we'll show you Android Auto, and then I'll give you my thoughts at the end for just my overall opinion on this infotainment system. From a base level, on this home screen, we have our navigation here on the left. You have whatever media is going, one to the right, whatever media is paired to the car. Your personal assistant, which is sort of just like Siri.
Hello, I am your personal assistant, and as such your expert for sheer driving pleasure. I can help you adjust vehicle functions and offer you advice and support. Ask me questions at any time, such as how is the traffic on my route, or give a command, such as open the rear right window. I can control functions for you so that you can keep your eyes on the road as much as possible, and we will always get to your destination safely. You will find tips for voice control and additional sample commands in the help menu, so we can always understand each other perfectly. Just ask me. I'm already looking forward to driving together.
So you have her on here in iDrive 8, and you can actually make her roll down windows. So let's try that out. Lower the right rear window.
All right, I will open the right rear window.
Check that out. So kind of just cool little gimmicky things like that you can do here with iDrive 8, which is cool. You know, they're giving you some of these, like, I don't know, I don't want to say gimmicks, but they're giving you these new features that you just don't get on these older generation BMWs or older generation infotainment systems. You also have BMW Assistance, Owner's Manual, and tips all in here with your personal assistant. So anyways, let's move on here. You've got weather, of course. You can see here it's 83 degrees out. Traffic conditions. You've got your My BMW menu, which is kind of similar to the one you get on iDrive 7. And you have route preview. And you can actually add more widgets. If you still want more widgets on this menu, you can add a clock. Looks like that's your only option there. So let's go ahead back to the beginning. And actually, before we get into the widgets, let's take a look here on the left-hand side. Beyond all of these home screen widgets, you also have little tabs here on the left for a main menu, which takes you to about 1,000 more apps. You can see all of this. It's a little bit overwhelming. Below that, you've got media, which will just take you to Apple CarPlay, or if you want to listen to Sirius XM, whatever else, go to a different mobile device. Telephone menu, which takes you to Apple CarPlay. Go back here. Or, you know, of course, it's not always going to take you to Apple CarPlay, whatever sort of device you have synced. Navigation, which you can also get to just by tapping that far left widget. And then, of course, at the bottom, Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, depending on what sort of phone you have connected. So let's go ahead and take a look here at the navigation screen. You can see it's just a pretty plain layout here. It's just a gray screen. You can move this around with your finger. It reacts pretty quickly. It's not the fastest reacting infotainment, but it's pretty dang close. You can see the frame rate there and the speed in which it follows my finger. You can input destinations there on the left, and then you can toggle some of your navigation settings there on the right. Pretty attractive screen there, and yeah, I don't really have any problems there with the infotainment screen, or excuse me, with the navigation screen. We're going to skip over Apple CarPlay for now because that'll be a separate thing we check out later. But let's go over to the My BMW menu and take a look through this. So this just gives you your check control, your tire pressure monitor, and then if you have a required service. It's not as in-depth as it used to be. Check control is just no faults. And this is mainly because you have some more in-depth settings in the actual menu. And route preview just takes you back to the navigation screen, just to let you know, kind of like Waze in the way that it'll let you know of any impeding sort of things for your drive route. But honestly, once you get the hang of this, it's not too hard to use, and a lot of these widgets really just take you to the same place. So it's kind of busy, it's kind of crowded, but once you get the groove of it and once you figure it out, it's less overwhelming. But it's honestly super overwhelming at first when you click this menu button, and it's really just like an overloaded smartphone with a bunch of scattered apps. But again, a lot of these take you to the places that the widgets on the main menu do. For instance, navigation, Apple CarPlay, weather, all of those things will take you to those main widgets. We do have some different things in here though, such as BMW Shop. We have interior lighting. Of course, you can change your ambient lighting this way. We have a limited amount of colors in this car. You aren't able to do a custom color. And sadly, there's no purple. I usually like to roll around with purple, but the closest you can get is Fanatic Pink or Electrifying Blue. And Electrifying Blue is actually very attractive, so I have been rolling around with that color. You can also adjust brightness in there and whatever else you need to do. Shortcuts to things in CarPlay, Maps, Calendar, Google Maps, all of those, Charge Point, all of those things come in here and they just shortcut you to CarPlay. So you can see I've got Charge Point here. And since this is an electric car, that is quite useful. Messages, all of these sort of things. You've got exterior lighting settings, display settings for brightness, driving settings will go into this menu. If you want to mess with the iconic sounds, this car has sounds engineered by Hans Zimmer, the same gentleman that gave us the Interstellar soundtrack. Very, very iconic man, and he engineered the electric vehicle sounds inside this BMW i4. So I do have those toggled on. They're quite a bit of fun. They don't drone like a Kia or a Hyundai does. Also got charging settings in here. You can mess with all of those settings. So once you get past the jumbled look of everything, it's really not so bad, and it's honestly not too bad to navigate. I think the problem here with this is that they give you so many options and so many different ways to work this infotainment system. It can be a little bit overwhelming. So that's just my opinion there. So let's go ahead and take a look at Apple CarPlay, and we'll get to that this way. I do have it on charge point right now as we just clicked on that, but click at your little grid down there on the bottom left, and it takes you to the wide view of Apple CarPlay. We have 5 apps across, 2 apps down, and it reacts pretty quickly, and it's a pretty attractive look, if I do say so myself. Let's take a look here into Spotify. Reacts quickly, no problem. Take a look at the song here. Yeah, all of that works quite well, and it's quite an attractive look. Let's go to Waze. Super fast reaction time there from Waze, and we do get the full screen view on that. What else do we want to look at in here? That's really about it. We can take a look at Google Maps. Here's Google Maps. Doesn't react quite as quickly, but it's still pretty dang good. Cool. So before we move on to Android Auto, actually, I left out my least favorite part of this infotainment system, and that is the climate menu. You don't get a physical climate control panel or unit on this BMW i4. With iDrive 8, you get this permanent little bar down here at the bottom that controls your temperature, which is a quick access button. You can see here I can very quickly adjust the temperature. But if you want to adjust fan speed, you have to click climate menu and go into this somewhat complex menu here. So this controls your heated and cooled seats. You can turn those on here with these toggles, as you can see. And you control your fan speed there. It does react quite quickly, which is nice. And over here you control where the fans are actually blowing. I can aim that at my feet, or I can aim it at my face or at the windshield. And you can toggle off sync or not sync if you're a passenger wants to control their own temperature. So not the most complicated thing in the world. It's a little bit more complex on the BMW iX just because it has quite a few more options. It's a little easier here on the i4, but come on, BMW, give me just a climate control panel. It's one extra step. It's 2, 3, 4 extra seconds. You have to take your eyes off the road to navigate this. This isn't something that you can really just, point and shoot. I guess maybe if you've been driving the car for a while, you can blindly adjust this. But I do like having something down here that I can just, move a knob, whatever, and just be able to control my climate control that way. So then, now is the part in the video where you all get to see me try and operate an Android phone. We're going to go ahead and take a look here at Android Auto. All right, getting Android Auto connected up here. This is wireless. I just have the phone plugged in to get a little bit of charge while we are doing this demo here. But as you can see, it's a little bit of a lower resolution here on Android Auto. And we do have a little bit of a gap over there on the left. You can see it's not totally full screen. It's kind of low res, guys. Let's go back to our home here up on the upper left. You can see we have our apps, and it does totally lag. Okay, it lags a little bit. So Android Auto doesn't run the smoothest here on iDrive 8. You can see it's kind of low res, it lags a little bit. But it is here. So if you do have an Android, and this is an inactive phone, so we can't take a look at Google Maps. Ooh, okay, this is kind of painful to use. The good news is it is there. So if you do have an Android phone, well, there you go. Android Auto does exist. Okay, get me out of here. I cannot stand to look at that anymore. Okay, so then there you go. That was the infotainment tour. Kind of a brief tour there of iDrive 8 and this entire live cockpit with the cluster and everything. And overall, I've got to say, I do enjoy this infotainment system. It's not as scary as I once thought it was. Now that I've lived with this car for a few days, it is pretty intuitive and it's easy to get a hang of. It reacts very quickly, of course, minus if you're in Android Auto, it lags a little bit, but Apple CarPlay works great. And my only real complaint here is having this climate menu be part of the infotainment. That really should be its own separate panel, but you've heard enough journalists talk about that, so I'll stop talking about it and honestly give you the refreshing review that iDrive 8 is a pretty nice infotainment system. And plus, how cool is that personal assistant that'll roll down windows for you and whatnot. So thank you guys all so much for watching. Comment down below if you have any suggestions for these infotainment videos, as we're still kind of getting in the groove here. But that'll wrap it up for us today. Thank you all so much for watching. This has been Chris here with Daily Motor. And as always, drive on.